Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Erudite Magic with me, your host, Jeff Kowalk. This week we're going to be airing part 2 of the interview I had with Andi Gladwin of Vanishing Inc. fame. If you haven't already seen the incredibly interesting first part of that video, you need to watch it by clicking on the link right here. I'm sure you'll find this second part to be just as riveting as the first one, so thanks for tuning in. Without any further ado, let's air the second part of my interview with Andi Gladwin.
But it brings up an interesting point when you talk about the authors. How do you find the people that you want to print? Because as you're talking about here, it's a pretty big commitment if you guys decide to print their book, because you want to see their book in print, and you're going to bring them in maybe for Magi Fest and all these other things. So how do you find the people that you want to publish their books?
The goal is always to find people who will write the books that we want to read. It's as simple as that. And lately we've actually been trying it differently. So often we say, Azzy Wind, we hear you're writing a book, we'd love to work with you, or something like that. It's normally a process because we pretty much always work with friends, so we know what they're working on. But lately we've changed that. Josh and I have been saying, what books do we want to read? What magic books don't exist? So we both had decided we want to read a book on the history of Black magicians. There's no book on that subject. Well, there's one book on that subject, but it's not updated all that much. So we have found authors that we would like to write that book, and we've commissioned to write that book. There's a very specific history book that we want to be written. So we found an author, and that book is now being written. We wanted to write a book. If you want to talk about niche magic books, we want to write or release a book about the history of female magicians for young magicians, so that young magicians can grow up in magic knowing that it's not just a male hobby, but actually right from when you start in magic, you can learn about all these wonderful female magicians. So we
Adelaide Herman and all those others, yes.
Exactly. And we found an first-time magic author, but a fantastic author in our own right, who we just knew that would really tackle this subject. So we've commissioned her to write the book, and it's I just read the first draft a couple of weeks ago, and it's fantastic. And it's a kids' book about female magicians. So that's the new approach right now, and it will be mixed with the old style approach of us seeking out friends, and also people submitting books to us. We get about 1 or 2 books submitted to us a week.
Wow.
And that's a big job to read through those books and give genuine feedback, because we can't just send I know you spent the last 2 years of your life working on this book, and I'm going to just say, oh, sorry, it's not for us, or it's
right.
If you change this, it would be for us. So it's a big job just reading manuscripts.
And that's from the publishing side. When you're authoring a book, I was curious, what does that process look like to get someone else's magic on the page? Is that something you meet for somebody in a hidden location for 2 weeks and just grind it out, or is it a few email exchanges, or how does that look?
So that's always with friends. When you write a book on someone else's magic, you put your life. You basically say, I'm going to give my next year of my life, and that's, to me, that could never be a business decision, because there will never be enough money to warrant the time that takes, and the stress that takes, and the toll it takes on my own magic as well, on my own performances. So yeah, I don't have a good answer to that, just because I've always known who I wanted to write about. Thomas Blomberg is a very long time friend, and a guy who I knew he had material that the world must see. Jack Parker, of course, but lately I've been writing books. They're not released yet, but books on the history of card magic, so historic magicians. So the first one that was released was the Edward G. Brown book, where I took Brown's old book and then I added my study guide to it. But I have 2 other magicians I've been writing about, both British magicians from a similar era, both completely unknown by today's standards, but both have incredible magic, and magic that needs to be seen, and magic that actually stands the test of time. Whereas not all of the Edward Brown tricks stood the test of time, but actually of these other 2 authors, I feel they do. So those ones are for me. Those are personal projects where I get to learn about my own magic from researching and writing about other magicians. But the ones where it's the Thomas Blomberg, Scott Robinson, those kind of people always have to be friends.
I love that. And in fact, I actually love the Edward G. Brown book, because I liked the I like to read old magic books. So I liked it that you included the old write-ups, but I loved the companion to say, well, here's my take or how you can modernize this or a better handling that was subsequently, and I loved that. I
That's great.
absolutely did.
Thank you. It was a fun project to do, a really tough project to do, because you have to send your mind back to when the book was written, or in fact, in this case, not even when the book was written, when the magic was created, so in the 1940s. So it's hard to compare the magic to current standards. Instead, you have to say, what did Edward Brown have access to? What
Right.
techniques, what routines was he watching in order to create this stuff? So it takes its toll. It takes a lot of research and reading, but it's a fun process, and you learn a lot about your own magic while you're doing it.
Cool. Earlier, a little bit ago, you mentioned about piracy, and that was one of the questions I had for you is how do you think, and you alluded to it earlier, but how do you think piracy has affected specifically the magic book world, and where do you see that going?
So I don't think it's had a massive negative impact on magic books. I think it's had a negative impact on magic video, uh, but it has had a negative impact on magic book authors, and
Mhm.
that's kind of hard to watch now, because I know what it's like to spend your life, or at least 2 or 3 years of your life, working on a book, only to then find out that it's been scanned in and put online, or it's been printed, a pirate version printed. I have copies of my own books printed in different languages without permission, and that's really tough. It's gut wrenching to see that somebody would treat your work in that way. And I'm starting to see authors now say, why should I? Why should
Mm.
I dedicate all that time to be able to then have somebody else making more money from it than me? But what I find is that, so I've been talking about piracy now for a few months as kind of a platform, I guess. And that's led to some interesting conversations with people who have pirated magic. And what I find is those people who are buying pirated magic books are not actually reading them. So
Right.
they get these PDFs, and they have the best intentions. They put them on their iPad, and then they forget about it. You can't forget about a book when you're looking at it, but you can when it's a closed app on your phone or whatever. So it's not changing how people are consuming magic, as in reading the magic, but it is stopping people from buying physical books, and that's going to be a problem eventually. So right now, I think it's okay. I think the sales numbers are possibly higher than they've ever been for magic books, but
And that's great.
give that 5, 10 years, if this trajectory continues of piracy, and people are just going, well, I'm not going to buy the book because I can get it for $1.99 as a PDF. If that happens, then we're going to see a lot less magic books published, sadly. So yeah, I feel like we haven't felt the full force of piracy on magic books yet, but I sense we will in the next 5 to 10 years.
Interesting. Well, we're counting on you to lead the fight. We've seen your video, and
Well,
appreciate what you're doing there with the work that you're doing to
you're very
to
kind.
help magic. And it's been a secretive art form for a long time, and if you're it just hurts everybody. So we appreciate it.
And we should remember, magic has not been immune. Magic books haven't been immune from piracy forever.
Mhm.
Even Erdnase has illustrations that were taken, that other books took from Erdnase, and Erdnase even plagiarized some, not exact sentences, but certainly meanings. So we know piracy has been around in magic books for at least a century, certainly more than that. And yeah, my aim is not to be the leader of this platform, but my aim is to make myself available, and I have some specific skill sets that allow me to help track down some of these pirates. So I'm trying my best, but if anybody wants to join the fight, then please, let's do this together. It'll be easier that way.
One of the final questions I have for you here is what I'll call a free for all here. I've asked you a lot of questions that I think are interesting, but I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you want to share that I haven't asked about as it relates to being an author or a publisher or magic books in general.
Um, no, I guess one thing I always find fascinating to talk about is how to read a magic book, right? Because that's not something we really talk about all that much. So I'm always happy to share that, my approach, and basically how I use my library. People often see all my books and go, "But have you read all those?" And of course not. I can't
Right.
read all those, and I try my best, but. Uh, the concept of an anti-library, I guess, is referred to as the kind of the cool phrase at the moment, is to basically have so many books that you can look at them and go, I have so much more to learn. And
Yes.
that's a good use of my library. I also use it as a resource as well. If I'm working on a trick, my technique is to always trace it back as far as it can go. So if I'm working on a version of Twisting the Aces, I will go back to Vernon, and then I will see if there's anything predecessors before Vernon, and then I will start to look at all the other versions, and then ultimately I can develop the best version. So yeah, if there's one thing I enjoy talking about, it's how to read Magic books, mainly because I don't think we've had enough conversations about that in Magic.
So allowing your library to inspire you, that's one thing that I heard. Any other tips for people wanting to learn to read Magic books the right way?
To give yourself time and space is one thing. I specifically built this office around reading Magic books. Actually, the work part of this office is the smallest space, just here, just a small desk and a computer. But everything else around me is practice tables, places to sit and read. You can't see, I'm pointing to it where I keep all my magazines and all my props around here. I have a room here to kind of store all my props organized. So having space is a good thing. However, I realize I'm very lucky to have this space. This is a converted garage or garage. And so I'm very lucky to have that. But if you don't have that, just having the same space to sit and read, a quiet space, is the perfect solution. I find too many people try and read Magic books when there's too much going on. So I give myself space, and I give myself time to just sit and really take it in. And when I find time to do that, that's the time where I really learn Magic.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So the final question I have for you is, do you really believe what Josh says, that his fashion sense is better than you?
That's a great question. And several people have told me after that, there's a line, the last line of Josh's new book, How Magicians Think, is it's such a lovely line about how much of this book is inspired by me or something like that. I mean, it's overly kind, way overly kind. He's inspired by me in every way except for my fashion sense. But several people have told me they think my fashion sense is better. So who knows?
That's all I can say, is that if I had to choose to dress like one of the two of you, it would be like you, Andy.
There we go. See, the old nerd chic style. It's very popular.
Some of us are more comfortable that way.
Yep. However, Josh we've had a Vanishing Ink hoodie designed, and Josh has been wearing the sample for the last 6 months. And when we first got it, I was like, nope. And now I love it. I can't wait to get them made so that I can get one myself. So maybe Josh's dress sense is just a time thing. Just
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time very much, Andy. This was, to me, massively entertaining. I enjoyed hearing you talk about this from the perspective of an author and a publisher and all those things. And
thanks for all you do. Like the fact that we have somebody speaking as a voice about Magic books, like that's who'd have thought that there will be a YouTube channel and Instagram and social media about Magic books? Like that's great. That's the world I want to live in. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
Cool.
Thanks for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. Speak to you later. Bye.